Hey, how's it going guys, Kris here, and welcome to another episode of Weapon Versus, where I pit two Battlefield 5 guns against each other, deep dive into their stats to see how they compare, and basically let you know how one is going to be better than the other at doing certain things in certain situations. In this episode, we're going to be taking a good look at two of the game's passive-aggressive light machine guns for the support class. The good old Lewis gun with those spinning pan magazines, along with the Bren gun, which happens to have its magazines shoved into the top of its head. The two weapons are both similar in a lot of ways, and are both going to be pretty well suited for defensive playstyles, catering for medium ranges more so, as opposed to those dangerous skirmishes within close quarters. With that said, there's still loads of differences to separate them individually, and so there's definitely reasons why you might want to pick one over the other. So first things first, just how dangerous are the Bren and Lewis guns? Well, it's safe to say that damage-wise, they're both going to be on par with each other regarding damage per bullet, with the two LMGs dealing their maximum values of 25 to 10 meters, which then gradually gets weaker and weaker over distance, to the point where you're going to be dishing out a minimum damage of 18.5 at 75 meters and beyond. Just like a lot of the other automatic weapons in the game, both the Bren and Lewis gun are capable of taking another player out in short proximities in just 4 bullets. But that's only if your enemy happens to be really close by within 10 meters of your position. Any further than this, and you're gonna need to land more shots to seal the deal, with it generally taking an extra 5th bullet to kill up to 50 meters, and another one if they're any further still. So basically up to 6 shots if your opponent is far away in the distance, and happens to have their health maxed out. These damage figures basically give both weapons a moderate amount of power per bullet, and allow them to chip decent chunks of health away from your enemy's health bar over most distances. Even better if you manage to land a headshot, which is going to allow you to drop players in one less bullet. Definitely a good way to maximise those kill times, and come out on top in a gunfight. But one of the biggest downsides to both of the guns' lethality is the fact that they shoot slower than a lot of the other automatic weapons, and neither the Lewis gun or the Bren have access to the light bolt specialization to ramp up those fire rates and decrease those fairly sluggish kill times. Neither the Bren or the Lewis gun are particularly fantastic weapons for aggressive close quarter combat, down to them not being able to compete with a lot of the other guns in the game in terms of their raw power and speed, making them more ideal for further ranges where they can hold on to that power better and are less likely to get shredded up by a rapid-firing SMG or assault rifle. But this is where the Lewis gun has a slight upper hand, with it firing at the reasonable but still not exactly super impressive rate of 540 RPM, giving it roughly about 5% more speed over the Bren gun's 514 RPM fire rate, thus allowing it to shoot 26 RPM faster. Not exactly a tremendous difference between the two guns, but still enough to make an impact in some circumstances, as not only will the Lewis gun seem like the deadlier gun to use, dropping players slightly faster and ultimately allowing it to win more gunfights against other weapons, but it also means that you might find it easier to deal with multiple enemies one after the other within a shorter space of time, therefore potentially giving you a better chance of surviving a heated battle against several players, down to you being able to skip between targets faster as they drop to the floor one by one. So damage, power and speed are all pretty nice things to take into consideration when choosing a weapon, but all of those things don't mean jack shit if you can't hit the bloody guy you're trying to shoot at. And although the Lewis and Bren guns aren't really favoured for having rapid fire rates or nippy kill times, they do generally offer better levels of precision over a fair few of the other support guns, allowing you to land more shots on target and generally speed up kill times over range, due to more shots essentially not missing. The Bren gun is basically the more accurate weapon of the two, with a base horizontal recoil value of 0.15. With the Lewis gun having a higher value of 0.225, this generally makes the Bren gun 40% more accurate, meaning it's not going to sway from side to side quite as much, therefore generally making it more reliable at hitting targets further away, which just might make up for the gun's slightly slower fire rate, potentially speeding up its kill times over the Lewis guns, because more shots are actually connecting instead of straying off target. With that said, although the Bren gun has less horizontal recoil, the Lewis gun has less vertical recoil, basically making it a bit easier to control, as it's not going to kick upwards quite so much. The Bren's got an upwards kick of 0.66, whereas the Lewis gun's got a nicer value of 0.62, which is about 6% less per shot. Might not sound like a huge difference, but when that recoil adds up over time, that 6% just might be the difference between a shot landed on target or flying over your opponent's head. Despite the Bren having more vertical kick however, it also happens to have a higher decrease value, which is actually a good thing, as this basically means it's gradually going to gain less and less vertical recoil over time as you hold down that trigger, helping to make up for that heavier upwards kick and allowing it to perform a little bit better with sustained fire. The Lewis gun's decreased value is a teeny bit lower than the Bren's, but it's still going to be the more stable option of the two, having that lower vertical recoil nevertheless. It just means that the two guns are going to be a bit more on par with each other when you're firing in longer streams, with the Lewis gun's first few shots being easier to control than the Bren's, perhaps making it more suitable for tap and burst firing. Both guns can have their vertical recoil reduced with the recoil buffer specialization, which doesn't directly affect the recoil itself, but the decreased value instead, allowing the guns to become more stable with each shot fired, mainly being more useful for when you're shooting longer streams of lead or bursting your shots. Horizontal recoil figures can be reduced directly with the ported barrel specialization. The Lewis guns can be lowered to 0.18, which is almost as good as the Bren's base figures, and the Bren's can be dropped down even further to a super accurate value of 0.1, which is almost 60% lower than the Bren guns with that ported barrel applied. Both weapons are really going to benefit from those specializations, and they even have access to bipods, which can be improved even more so too, with a specialization, further increasing accuracy when you're playing from stationary positions. They both also happen to have the same muzzle velocity of 740 meters per second, which can also be increased with high velocity bullets, up to 840. So the biggest differences regarding their overall precision mainly stem from those recoil patterns, with the Bren generally being the more accurate weapon of the two, but the Lewis gun being a little bit easier to manage and keep under control. Now, when it comes to reliability, light machine guns often feature some of the biggest advantages and disadvantages when compared to some of the other weapons, mainly due to the ways they handle with their ammunition and down to them generally being a bit less mobile and slower to maneuver. In this case specifically, both the Lewis and Bren guns manage ammunition slightly differently to each other, helping them to be more useful in some situations, but far less so in others. The Lewis gun's basically the larger ammo bearer, that can carry more bullets than the Bren, having a normal magazine size of 47 shots, so 17 more than the Bren's 30 round mags, potentially allowing you to take down a few extra enemies per reload, which is always a nice thing to be able to do. But of course, let's highlight the elephant in the room here. Because yeah, the Lewis gun does normally hold up to 47 rounds, which is decent enough as it is, already giving you an advantage over the Bren. Though if that's simply not enough, the Lewis guns also get access to an extended pan magazine as well. This isn't any ordinary extended magazine though, because it doesn't just give you a few extra shots to play around with, it allows the gun to carry over twice as much ammunition as normal, up to 97 bullets at a time. So you're very rarely going to get caught out, should you decide to equip it. These extended mags provide you with 3 times the amount of bullets that the Bren does, with an extra 7 bullets still to spare. And they're generally going to allow you to keep going and going, gunning down targets and sustain fire for longer durations, where the Bren would run out of steam much earlier and leave you open to attack after most gunfights. So I guess you could say that the Lewis gun's got a huge advantage over the Bren regarding reliability. But it's not all good news for the Lewis gun, because it does have much slower reload times to compensate for having all that ammo. The Lewis gun reloads its pan magazines at the same speeds, no matter which size you've gone for, and it's going to take 3.55 seconds to perform a tactical reload with bullets left over, and a whole second more at 4.55 seconds if you swap over a completely empty one. These times are very easily beaten by the Bren's much quicker 2.5 second tactical reloads and 3.7 second empty reloads, and so although the Lewis gun might be able to keep you in the fight for longer, the Bren gun's going to be able to swap mags around a lot faster, which might be beneficial if you have the tendency to reload often and in between gunfights, probably making it a better gun for popping in and out of cover instead of suppressing fire. Unlike the Lewis gun, the Bren's reload times can be sped up even quicker with the quick reload specialization, further improving reliability and cutting down that vulnerability time even more. This increases reload speed by 15%, now allowing the Bren to reload about 1.4 seconds quicker than the Lewis gun, and 1.4 seconds could definitely be the difference between life and death if you get caught out mid-reload or get yourself into an awkward position, surrounded by the enemy team. So which gun should you choose? Both of these LMGs offer similar sort of things to each other, but both are going to perform slightly better or worse in certain situations, with them mainly catering for medium ranges overall. The Lewis gun's probably going to be a more ideal fit for earlier distances, due to it firing a bit faster and therefore killing quicker, and because it's not quite as precise as the Bren gun, having higher horizontal kick values, this means that you're probably going to miss more shots over longer ranges, especially if you've not got that bipod set up. Having those chunky magazines and potentially being able to fire off 97 bullets without needing to reload does give the Lewis gun some really nice suppressive qualities. And although it's capable of keeping you in the fight for longer, and can perhaps even save your ass if you get yourself surrounded, it'll probably be better when you're skipping from target to target, knocking down oncoming attackers one by one, where the Bren would struggle to kill more than a couple of players before being interrupted by the need to swap mags. Neither of the two guns are particularly great weapons for rushing the objectives or playing with an offensive mindset, though the Lewis gun will probably give you the better results if you do want to unleash a bit of that aggressive energy, while still being able to handle with some targets further away as well. The Bren gun on the other hand will probably be a better option for those who don't want to suppress fire so much and would rather have something with a higher degree of accuracy instead, still being able to perform well over mid to long ranges, but perhaps not so much within shorter sight lines, due to a less competitive rate of fire and smaller magazines. It's easier to land more shots on target with the Bren, though its higher upwards recoil can cause a few problems at times, unlike the Lewis gun, which can often seem a bit more stable, often forcing you to aim a bit lower down or burst your shots in smaller groupings to accommodate. And although the Bren's higher accuracy will allow it to excel over longer ranges than the Lewis gun, there might be a bit more of a learning curve to get to grips with its recoil, possibly making the Lewis gun seem like an easier gun to pick up and play with, being a bit less accurate but a tad more predictable. With the Bren having far quicker reload speeds and smaller magazines, it's going to be favoured by those who like to reload whenever they get the opportunity. So basically, if you're one of those guys that reloads after every kill, then the Bren's going to be a much more dependable choice. Although it won't be able to take on as many players per mag, you will be able to get back into the fight faster in between gunfights, once again making it a better option for skipping from cover to cover, reloading while you do, and taking on a couple of players at a time, rather than using the weapon as a bullet spewing suppression machine from a single position. Generally speaking, if you want a more well-rounded LMG that's going to perform adequately over mid-range, being able to sustain fire better and often seem like an easier weapon to control, kill and survive with, then the Lewis gun is probably going to be the one for you. It'll usually perform better within shorter sight lines too, due to its slightly faster rate of fire and impressive magazine sizes, so in many ways it'll often seem like the more versatile choice. On the flip side, the Bren gun's the one to pick if you want to have extra precision, and be capable of landing more shots accurately further away. It can only take down a few enemies at a time, but with it having snappier reloads to get you back into the fight quickly, it'll be more effective when used with a passive mindset, having slower kill times but higher accuracy to make up for it, possibly being a superior weapon for longer range battles, and taking enemies out from unexpected positions. So that's pretty much all I've got for you this time guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know down below which gun is your favourite and why it is, and subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated with all the fresh content. Thanks for watching folks, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.